Chevre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong and happy, physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Yom Kippurim, Tovshin Pei Hey. It's Erev Yom Kippur, Tovshin Pei Hey, a very holy day. We're very busy with the preparations of the holiest day of the year. I have to still do kapores, and I hope time will allow us to at least bring out the main points. As usual, since the war started, we added tzedakah, gdelet tzedakah, shemakareves sagula. Mashiach should come now, the war should end, and everyone should be healthy and safe. We'll now say a prayer. These days of Aseret Yemei Tshuva, we're saying Kapitel Kuf Lamed. Shiramayles mimamakim kasichadinoi. A song of ascents out of the depth I call to you, O Hashem. So Chassidus explains that mimamakim goes on the depth of the soul. Mimamakim can either mean that a person's hit rock bottom and he says, Hashem, help me. But it also means mimamakim from the most deepest level of my core, of my essence, karasicha, I call out to Hashem. And as Chassidus explains, it's similar to menamei tzarkarosiko ononi b'merchavya. You call out from your oimik of the depth, and you reach the depths of the depth, so to speak, of Hashem. Atzmus, etzem hanefesh, the essence of your soul, calls out to Atzmus, to the essence of Hashem, and He responds. And that's what Yom Kippur is all about. As we'll speak about today, what does it mean, Yom Kippur? What's the lesson we take for the whole year? And as usual, as we spoke many times, we have to live with the Parsha Shavua. We have to live with the Parsha Shavua. So in the last pasuk of the entire Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the pasuk speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu and all his accomplishments and how awesome he was and how great he was and how he was the greatest. There never was another prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu. That's in pasuk Yud, in Kapitel Lamed Daled. That's 2 pasukim before the end. And pasuk Yud Beis says, "U'lechayla yoda chazaka, u'lechayla meira godel ashasa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael." And regarding everything carried out with his strong hands and everything performed in the fearful and great desert that Moshe did in full view of all Yisrael, of all of the nation. So over here, what I'm going to speak today is basically 2 sichas, but connected to another 2 sichas. I'm going to speak a sicha in chelik chavov, kisiso, and a chelik lamed daled v'zeis habracha. The question over here is an obvious question. You'd think that the good book, as the Bible is called, Chamisha Chumshei Torah, would end off with something good. What does it end off with? It ends off how because of the Chet Egel, Moshe had to smash, shatter, break the luchos. Does that sound like a positive thing? And in general, it's considered the worst Aveda, Chet Egel, Poskezu Mosam, but then it all returned. Whatever level of impurity was in the Bnei Yisrael, was cleansed at the time of Matan Torah, and just 40 days later, whatever, the amount, a certain amount of days, they did the Chet Egel, the sin of the golden calf, which is considered the greatest sin of all time. So that's how the Torah ends off. But not only that, why is this the epitome? We're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, and we're talking about his awesome accomplishments. He brought down the money, split the sea. He was in the Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights 3 times, and he didn't eat. He did such accomplishments that no one else did b'chlal. So why is it that if we talk about his greatest achievement, which hakel hoylech achar achitum, we say everything goes according to the end? What's his greatest achievement? The tachlis, the ultimate, and the greatest of the greatest acts that Moshe Rabbeinu did was that he smashed the luchos. And Rashi says over here, le'enei kol Yisrael, and Rashi says, that's what the pasuk means over here when it says le'enei kol Yisrael. What Moshe Rabbeinu did in the eyes of all of the Yidden. He's referring to the breaking of the luches that was in full view of the entire nation. Nesai Liba means his heart was uplifted to break the luches. Shenema ve'eshbereim le'nechem. They saw the way he broke the luches. And then the Eskimo Dasa Kodesh Baruch L'daitoi, Hashem agreed with what Moshe did. Shenema Asher Shibarto. There's a pasuk previously in Parashat Kisisa which says, that which you smashed. And we learn out from the word Asher. Asher means as an improvement. Ashrei Ishur. Shenema Asher Shibarto, Yasher Koyach Shibarto. So Hashem says, it's praiseworthy. Thank you for breaking it. So over here we have to understand, what's the big thank you? Besides for all the other questions we asked, what's the thank you that Moshe broke the luchas? Okay. So first we'll give one explanation, which is an amazing explanation of the Rebbe in Chelik Chavav of L'Kutei Sichos, Parashat Kisisa. The first explanation is going to be about humility. And it comes out from that Sikha in Chelik Chavav, a whole novel approach. It's not that the Yidden did something wrong. They did an Aveira, and Moshe had to break the luchas in order to protect them, as we'll soon see, which is going to be the main explanation to the second answer. But there's a Rashi, I'll quote it later, that the luchas is like the shtar, the contract, the ksuba between Hashem and the Yidden. And by Moshe breaking the contract, so therefore we're not considered guilty, we're not his wife, so therefore we can't be charged with any crime that we did something wrong. Okay, Rashi brings that down, we'll get to that later. But in Chelik Chavav, what the Rebbe says is as follows. Torah is not just wisdom. It's Hashem's wisdom, Elikus. How do we take Elikus? You might think that with your brain, with your intellect, which represents the ultimate superior quality of man, that's how you acquire Torah. So we say no. The main ingredient and quality and virtue that man has to have in order to acquire Torah is humility. My soul is considered like dust and like earth. Only when a person has humility, then he's able to get Torah. So the story is like this. When Hashem gave the Yidden Torah, what happened was, and I'm going to read to you inside because it's so astonishing, only the Rebbe could say such a word. Hashem chose the Yidden by Matan Torah. So then when the Yidden were in a matzah for Reimus, Visnasos, they were missing humility. Hey, we're top, we're the best, we're ultimate. So it's true that there is Galus Ashkina, page 252 and 251 in the L'Kutei Sichos, volume 26. True, the revelation at Sinai caused a sense of self-nullification, but that wasn't v'nafshi ka'ofer l'kol tiyeh. That wasn't humility to every single person. That was because there was a revelation from above. But the Yidden mitzad atzman, but the Yidden mitzad themselves, shtein dikin tachlos se'ilu v'yisnasos, they were holding by a high level of elevation. So then they nit given shaykh zum v'nafshi ka'ofer l'kol tiyeh, which means shahakel doshin, that people like tread on you, you feel really humble, true humility. Und das ist der Yasher Koicha Shibalta. This is the Yasher Koicha Shibalta. Hashem says thank you. Weil die Shviris Haluchas in an Eifem for Eshbereim Le'nechem. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu had to smash it in front of the whole Jewish nation. It was such a shock. It was such a total scene of Moshe taking the holiest of holies, Michtav Elikim, the luchas which were descended from heaven, and he took that in front of the whole nation and smashed it. So they felt a sense of oy vey, we're not so perfect after all. Hat ugetan bei Eden dem Gefühl von Shiflus und Shviras Lev. it caused the Yidden to become humble and have a broken heart. But das hat sie gemacht, a keli ruya, and made them an appropriate vehicle and vessel to can aufnehmen the kaflayim l'sashia von luchas shnios, dem ribui adin sof from Torah Shebal Peh. And made them vehicles to accept the double portion, double wisdom of luchas shnios, the true infinity of Torah. So I forgot to mention before, and I'm mentioning it now, that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a medrash, that after Moshe Rabbeinu smashed the luchas, Hashem says, Omalei HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Hashem told Moshe, Al tetztayer beluchas elishoyne shloi hoyu el aseres adibis levad. In the first set of the tablets, there was only Torah shebechsav, only aseres adibris. Ubeluchas hashniyim ani nois lecha she'ei be'em alochis medrash v'agodis. Through the luchas shniyos, we have laws, medrashim, agodis, kaflayim l'sishiyah. So concerning the luchas shniyos, we have a word that is considered kaflayim, double of the wisdom of luchas rishonis. Over here comes a question which I don't want to take. I can't say this for sure, but this is my feeling based on this sikha. You can ask a klotz kasha. What do you mean? Hashem gave the luchas rishonis, and it says that in the Aleph from Anoichi and Anoichi Avai Lekechi put his whole essence in the Torah. So what do you mean? The whole Torah was not in the first luchas? Why dafka in the luchas shniyos do we say that it's kaflayim l'sashia, that it's double? And based on this sikha, maybe you can say that in essence, theoretically, in the first luchas everything is there, but the shinoi is mitzad the gavra. We were not in a state of humility that made us able to get the infinity that's in the Torah. So we had to go through this traumatic experience, so to speak, the shattering of the luchas, and that brought us to a shviras halev. And because of that humility, we reached the level of a nafshi ka'ofa l'kel tiyeh. We reached a level of humility that made us a vehicle, like it says many times in Chassidus, vi nemen elikuz, vi nemen ein sof, nish durch dein metzias, not durch dein nish metzias. How do we take true infinity? Not through your existence, but through your non-existence. We were too full of ourselves to be able to get the true infinity of Torah. So that's what the Rebbe explains in Chilik Chavav, which is an astonishing pshat, because that means that the whole sin of Chet HaEgel, that's just the means. It's not about the sin. It's about our improving ourselves through the sin, which is in generally a lesson of Judaism. There's no such a thing as negativity for the purpose of negativity, or punishment for the purpose of punishment, etc., etc. Everything has to have a redemptive angle, and everything is about the positive. So the first lesson we take about the smashing of the luchas is that we had to go through an experience where through that experience we become stronger, healthier. And over here in this sense, what does it mean stronger and healthier? With a bit of humility. You know, when somebody gets up in public and he gives a speech and he says, I was humbled, and it took him some experience that he lived through, that he realized that he was humbled. Al derech October 7th, Rachman al this past year, you could all say that Eretz Yisrael was humbled, etc. We're not getting into the lessons of October 7th now, but I'm bringing up the point that sometimes you go through an experience and you get up and you say, I was humbled. And this reminds me of a Lashon in Torah Shalom, a famous Lashon of the Rebbe Rashab. He said, Brech sich de evet dafen brechen, weil brecht de guf. It's a very, very solemn and serious statement. He says, break yourself before Hashem will have to break you, because if he breaks, sometimes he has to break the body to bring a person to humility. So, who am I? I'm just repeating the words of the Rebbe Rashab. My point that I want to say is, let's just translate in simple words, humble yourself before you have to be humbled. And that's the advice, and that's the lesson that we take from the story of the luchas shniyos. It was all a positive experience to come to humility, which thereby we got the ultimate riches and empowerment. Double, kaflayim l'sashia, the entire Torah Shebal Peh, the true infinity of Torah was given to us through our humility. So that's the first lesson, and that's the connection to Yom Kippur. There's a saying of the Rebbe Marash, nicht da ist eine ganze Sache, wie ein zerbrochener Herz. There's nothing as whole as a broken heart. Which, if we're mentioning this, let me just mention, it goes together with a couple other sayings. It could be I mentioned it before or not, I'm not sure. Where it's like a twist. I don't know what you call it in English. Where there's nothing as whole. There's nothing as complete and whole as a broken heart. So together with that, the Rebbe Rashad, there's nothing as straight as a crooked ladder. So straight means it's a good ladder because it's on an angle. Then he said, there's nothing as black, that means as dark, as white shrouds a person is buried in. It's very sad. So we say, then there's another line, which this one doesn't translate so well in English. There's nothing as crooked as a gleich vertel. Gleich means straight. As a straight line. Antidote. But when it says gleich vertel, it means when a person says something about somebody, he just says it off the cuff. But it could destroy everything, Anyways. We're not going to sit now and explain all of these different things. So when we say Nishda za ganze Zach, that's a brach in the heart, it means humility. We're not talking over here about being depressed. I'm not talking about feeling crushed. We're talking about humility. Humility is healthy. Like they say, are you man enough to cry? Are you man enough to admit that you can make a mistake? So this is the first lesson in connection to Yom Kippurim. We are learning now this message. Why? Because Moshe had to go shatter the luchas in front of the whole nation to bring them to a feeling of humility, which made them more mature, more open, and receptive to receive more, and therefore they reached the greatest greatness. That's one pshat. And that's one feeling we have to come on Yom Kippur when we go and stand before Hashem. We don't stand before Hashem and we come with entitlement. We come with humility. Hashem, please, give us a good year. And when you stand before Hashem with a sense of humility, that's how you get everything that you want. And Hashem fulfills all your requests. Okay, so that's one explanation. But Chelik Chof, Chelik Lamed Daled, was a sikha that the Rebbe spoke, Shimchas Teire, Tovshem Mem Zayin. And it was whoever was there will never forget it. The Rebbe was sobbing and crying. And this is the real, amazing sikha of the Rebbe. Where the Rebbe as a leader, sometimes you read a sikha, and the Rebbe describes what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing, and the Rebbe's explanation, and you think to yourself, you know why the Rebbe knows? Because the Rebbe knows from himself. He's talking about what it means to be a leader. A true leader is all about his being, his leadership quality. What's a leader? A leader thinks only of the nation and what's for the good of the nation. And the explanation of the Rebbe in Chelik Lamed Daled starts with the Rashi that I mentioned before, and that is on the pasuk where it says Psol lecha shnei luchos avonim kedishainim. Rashi says, Moshel melech shaholach lemdinas hayom v'niach harusasa yimashvochis mitoch kilkel hashvochis yotza leHashem ra. So the king had a betrothed, and he had maidservants that were supposed to look after her and take care of her, but because of them, the bride got a bad name. Almat Sheshvina, the one who's supposed to safeguard the bride, look after the bride, the advocate of the bride, protector of the bride. The Korak Subasa. Omar Im Yemer HaMelech L'Harga, because in case the king will say to kill her, so the advocate is going to say, but she's not your wife. And Rashi says, HaMelech Ze HaKodeš Baruch HaShvachis Elu Erev Rav VaSheshvinin Ze Moshe Arusosi Shel HaKodeš Baruch Elu Yisrael. So in other words, Moshe destroys the Luchos because he's protecting the Yidden. And over here, the Rebbe gets to the very heart of Judaism to a very, very profound theological question, which is discussed in many Maimorim Chassidus. Who is greater, the Yidden or Torah? They're both Hashem. Yisrael, Oyraisa, V'kutshe B'richu, Kul Echad. It's all Hashem. But there's a famous Tanna de Be'elio, Mi Kodem L'mi, and it comes to the conclusion that the Yidden come first. Daber el B'nei Yisrael, Amer el B'nei Yisrael, Tzav el B'nei Yisrael. You had to have first a nation to whom to give the Torah. But maybe that means just in time-wise they're first. Technically, we need a nation to give the Torah, but maybe the Torah is greater, because the Torah is also the essence of Hashem. But no, we say that ultimately it's about the Yidden. Everything's about the Yidden. And there's a level of connection that Yidden have with Hashem, which is greater than the connection that the Torah has with Hashem. The iskashris atzmis of Neshamis Yisrael, Kutshe B'richu, the essential bond that the Yidden have with the Eibishter is greater than the connection of the Torah that has with the Eibishter. And this is what the Rebbe explains. Why did you have to, according to this explanation, now we understand also why you had to smash the luchas. Because Kol Zman there was the luchas, that's like the ksuba, and that's a document which could be used as something which could bring punishment and cause the Yidden to be guilty. So here's the choice. I have Maisa Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Luchas Rishonis, something which comes directly from Hashem, and I have the Yidden. Who comes first? If it's a question of smashing the Luchas and destroying it, or keeping them, and therefore it's going to endanger Bnei Yisrael come first. But why did he have to smash it L'Eini Kol Yisrael? Why couldn't he just do it on the side? And it would accomplish the same thing. He got rid of the document. He got rid of the shtar. He got rid of the contract. So once the contract is destroyed, so they can't be considered guilty anymore. Why did it have to do L'Eini Kol Yisrael? Because that's the true leader. He wants them to see this very message. What's the very message? Machshavton shel Yisrael kodma l'chol davar. A Yid is hecher von alle inyanim. The Gewalt von a Yid. There's nothing greater than a Yid. And that's the message that ganz Kol Yisrael has to get. A Yid is hecher von Torah. We're not getting into all the inyanim now. Because on the other hand, of course, only Torah is das gufa megala. We need the Torah itself to bring out the greatness of a Yid. But the Torah itself says a Yid is higher. We can't live without the Torah. And without the Torah, we'll never see the greatness of a Yid. But when it comes down to it, mit am Wissen sein, that Machshavton shel Yisrael kodma l'chol dover, there's nothing higher than another Yid, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu had to do it L'Eini Kol Yisrael. And that's why this is the greatest achievement of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because what's the mohus? What's the essence of Moshe Rabbeinu? A royei neman, a loyal shepherd. And what's a loyal shepherd? He does everything for the nation. Total mesiras nefesh. And as it's explained also in the Sichas of Kisisa, Moshe said, Mecheni lo misifrecha. If you're not going to forgive the Yidden, you could erase me from the Sefer Torah. In other words, he goes on total self-sacrifice for Bnei Yisrael. And Taka, that's why Moshe, the Eibishter tells him, you mechaven to what is the truth and what is the ultimate message. And this is the second, and Rashi said, the Rebbe says, even though Rashi later says, his kima das HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'daitoi. So he used the lashon of das. Moshe's mind was in sync with what Hashem wanted, but that's not what brought him to break the luchas. It wasn't about his das. It was the soil liboy. He had an elevation. He lifted up his heart. His avos Yisrael overrides everything else. He just knew in his gut feeling. It was an elevation of his heart. His avos Yisrael to every single Yid brought him to realize that the luchas have to be smashed in order to save Klal Yisrael and to give that message self as nishda as a hecher ezach v'yayid. And this is the second feeling which we have to approach the Eibishter on Yom Kippurim, which is Bein Kach Ubein Kach Bonayim V'Efshel Lachlifa B'Macheres. We turn to the Eibishter and we say, Tate Fote Zis in Himmel, Hashem. We might have made a mistake. We might have done the wrong thing. I'm not perfect, but I love you and you love me, and I'm going to improve and make good resolutions. And no matter where I am, in what level of blotter, and what level of mud, and what level of dirt, and what level of schmutz, whatever my matzav is, Ahavti eschem Amar Hashem, the Eibishter loves us. Machshavton sheYisrael kol milchol davar. And when you bring out this deeper level of love and attachment and affection to Hashem, when you reach deep down on yourself, you call out to the Eibishter with your heart, then the Eibishter responds, and he says, Salachti kidvarecha, and everything is fine and good. So there's this slightly paradoxical feeling that we get from the story of Shudas Haluchas. One is a level where we have to be humbled, come with humility. And the second is empowerment. Was mir sein in seinem mir, aber jeden seinem mir. Was mir sein in seinem mir, but we're your children. And that overrides everything else. And with that knowledge that we are your children, so we know that our essence is good no matter what. It says that le'yidach mimenu nidach. It's a halacha. Every single Jew will do tshuva. Every single Jew did tshuva, the Rebbe said already. Every single one of us knows that our true self is our better self, and we're connecting to that better self on Yom Kippurim, and we improve and bring it out. So the second message of Yom Kippur is that, we say that we call the Torah the good book, yeah? And you could look at the Torah, that the Torah is Chachmosei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is the Torah? The Torah is the wisdom of Hashem. And like I said many times, sometimes we say that the Jews are called the people of the book. We kochzchen Torah. But the truth is, ultimately, based on what we're saying now, it's not that the Jews are the people of the book, but the book is a book about the people. By the last posuk in the Torah, telling us that Moshe smashed the luchas, shattered the luchas, and broke the luchas. Why? Because of Bnei Yisrael, to save Bnei Yisrael. That proves that the whole Sefer Torah, the entire Chumash, is about bringing out the Maila of Yidden, and how the Yidden are the highest thing, and the whole Torah is there to elevate us and to show our awesomeness, preciousness, and our beauty. Maybe we should help that this Yom Kippur, even before Yom Kippur, should come the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, and it should be Lifnei Havaya to Torah. We should all be, our record should all be clean, and in honor of our preparations on Erev Yom Kippur, Mikamcha Yisrael. What kind of nation is this that's up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, doing kaparas and everything that the Eibishter wants, and the merit of the tzedakah and the lekach? Everyone should have a zisa yar, a very sweet year, b'teva nirav anigla, g'machsim b'teva, posting from the Rebbe Shchuna, a freilichen Yom Kippur, Mashiach now.